Hi, everyone. I see that a lot of us are slowly joining. Cool. So we're going to try something before I actually start talking. So I believe that everyone has a little hand on the screen. So go ahead and click just to see if it's actually working. Hi, Francois. Thank you. Hi, Mugisha.
Us.
Wow, that's a lot of highs. So hi, everyone. Awesome. So yes, the
She
button
can
is
see
working.
them.
Great.
She can see them. Great.
Cool. Okay, so it's 1:02, and I guess I'm gonna get started on the webinar. So,
Great.
hi everyone, and thank you for joining the Fighting Through COVID-19 webinar hosted by Afropedia and Mother Africa. My name is Beverly, and I am the president and founder of Afropedia, which is a nonprofit organization that I created to bring people together and share information and resources. So, in light of the current situation, we are partnering with Mother Africa, which is a nonprofit organization that works with refugees and immigrants' families to reach their fullest potential. So, great. So, I'm really happy to see how everyone is joining and how everyone is on time. That's amazing. Great. So, before I actually let you guys know how the webinar is going to go, I also want you all to try the chat box. So, can you guys see the chat box? Cool. I see Rose just commented. Hi, Rose. Emmanuel said hi as well. Okay, so everyone can see the chat box. You can
She
also
can.
see the Q&A. So along the webinar, feel free to ask questions at any time. And Munya, who is here, will be answering the questions during the second part of the webinar. So the schedule is gonna go as follow. So during the first part, we're going to have Deborah from King County, who is going to be sharing some data with us. And then the second part is going to be monitored and facilitated by Florette, who will be handling the panel and the Q&A. Sorry, no, just the panel. And the panel is going to be with Kamal, Johanna, and Nadia. And then we're going to have an organization fair where a couple of different organizations are going to be introducing themselves and maybe the resources that they have access to. Cool. So Deborah, I think I saw you, so the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning. I'm really sorry. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my video and my Zoom, and I have a call in for technical support. So with that, you're just going to see my name today, and so please forgive me for that, beloveds. My name is Deborah Baker, and I work for King County. My regular work is that I'm in the HR department, and I do work that helps our organization heal. So it's organizational development. I also have a background in social work. I also am an adult learning and development practitioner. So I do learning and development for adults. Um, when COVID hit, I got asked to go over to public health to support them in the COVID response. And so with that, um, I have my work has been closely aligned with their faith-based and community-based task force. And then I oversee their speakers bureau. So that's why I'm here with you today. So thank you for that. Um, with that, I'm going to share my screen with you. And can you let me know when you see it?
Yeah, it's working.
Great. So with that, my goal today is to talk with you a little bit about COVID. I want to highlight just a couple of resources, and then I'm also going to send the resource guide to Florette. And I want to thank Mother Africa, Florette, and others for asking us to join. You are a new community to me, and I look forward to getting to know all of you better. So, as you know, the stay-at-home, stay healthy order has been extended to May 31st, 2020. What I want to tell you about the coronavirus is that it's still a relatively new virus to us. It is true that there's been other strands. So people say, well, wasn't SARS a part of the coronavirus? The information I have is yes, but with the way that the virus is showing up, it's showing up in ways that we weren't accustomed to, like we didn't know about it. The only thing that we know about this virus is everything that's shown up about it between December and now. And we're doing research, we're testing, we're trying to get to know as much about it as we can. So with that, on May 2nd, Governor Inslee also shared a 4-phase plan to release the state back to work, or to open it up. What I can tell you is that came out yesterday, and so we don't have a lot of information about what that means. What does that look like? What are the steps within that? We are expecting to hear more about that actually this next week. So I don't have a lot on what he said yesterday about the 4-phase plan. What I can tell you is that the stay home, stay healthy order is extended until May 31st. Prior to that, and even within that, we do know that there's been a partial reopening of outside recreation. So beginning May 5th, hiking trails, state parks, state public lands will open. Fishing, hunting, and golfing will be allowed in certain areas. And if the number of COVID cases increases, then outdoor recreation will close again. What I appreciate about the governor is that he's trying to test it to see how things will go, instead of just opening everything up at one time and then we end up going backwards and having a whole bunch of people sick all over again. The other thing that we do know is that construction workers are back to work. With regard to partial opening of outdoor recreational areas, we do want you to be mindful that we want you to stay at home if you have cold or flu symptoms. Make sure that you avoid crowds. Practice the physical distancing. Bring a mask or facial covering, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Wash your hands often, and please, please, please bring your own food. We know that in our communities, we do a lot of food sharing, and we want to say, once you cook the food, we want you to be able to separate it out and not really share in the communal ways in which we're accustomed to, because the virus is spread through droplets. And so we want everyone to stay healthy. The symptoms of the coronavirus include a fever of 104 or higher, coughing, and difficulty breathing. Those are some of the main ways or symptoms of the virus. I'm sorry. Others can include like muscle ache. So if you have 2 or more of those symptoms, you do want to call your doctor immediately. Steps to reducing the spread. We really don't want you to go to the emergency room. We really want you to call a physician. And if you cannot call a doctor, don't have a doctor to call, your family doesn't have a doctor to call, I'm going to give you a number to our King County Public Health line. We want you to call them as soon as possible if you're sick, or if someone in your house is sick, and they can make sure to help you. And we have a language line. Practice the healthy hygiene habits. Clean your surfaces frequently, twice a day. We heard of instances where people were washing their hands every hour. You don't have to do that. We don't want you harming your hands and your arms because you're overwashing, but we do want you to wash frequently enough. So 2 to 3 times a day is great. If you're feeling sick, make sure to stay home. Avoid contact with people who are sick. As you know, public gatherings and gatherings are prohibited. And then just make sure to pay attention at least once a week to local information. Now, as far as face coverings go, our public health director and the governor is saying that people should wear cloth face coverings when you're in public places, and where it's hard to keep 6 feet away from others. You want to machine wash and dry your masks. In my home, we're washing our masks about twice a week. And we have masks that cover our entire mouth. Washing our hands frequently, and then making sure not to touch our face, particularly above the eyes. So we also know that our beautiful communities are sometimes experiencing challenges with wearing masks because there's a lot of stereotyping and just a lot of I'm losing language. I'm sorry, I can't think of the word, but yeah, we know that we are experiencing some challenges with that. And so if you're not comfortable wearing a mask, you do want to make sure that you're practicing the social distancing, that you're not in heavily populated areas when other people are there. So you really want to try to think about like going to the grocery store, when it's not overly crowded, if you're, in heavily densely populated areas, which none of us really should be, then you just want to really be mindful about it. I know some of our males in particular are very nervous about wearing masks in public. My husband, who tends to be, he's from Virginia and he's African American, and he tends to be very careful about who he is as a Black male. He's even wearing them just to make sure that he stays healthy. We really want you again to call the doctor if you have a fever, cough, difficulty breathing, if you're having body aches. Call your doctor. If you cannot call your doctor, here's the King County call center line, that 206-477-3977. And listen, if you cannot reach your doctor, or if you do not believe, or if you believe you're COVID positive, but you cannot get a test, we want you to call us and call us right away. Again, language lines are available. We are there to listen. We are there to help you. We are there to support you and get you tested, get you the medical services that you need. And then if you feel like you have COVID, we want you to stay home. If you feel like you've been exposed to COVID or have it, then you want us to stay in a place in the house that's not frequented by your family members often, and then have your meals separately, but you just don't want to infect anyone else in the home. My husband and I live with my parents. We all share a home together. My parents are in their 70s. I did not have COVID. I had a cold, but I made sure to have separate meals, to stay out of the general areas when they were in the general areas. So I would let them know when I needed to come down to make meals and everything. And so we abided by that. And I was happy to do that to keep my parents from being sick. We know that there's a lot of myths and misinformation. And so this, the World Health Organization, I'm sorry, because it says the CDC, but the World Health Organization has a great website and they really talk about the myths. So there's things like, oh, if I eat, a lot of cooked garlic, then that will help keep, that will keep me from getting the virus. No, that's not true. Garlic definitely keeps us healthy, but it does not prevent the virus. There's other myths around if I expose myself to light and sunlight, that will help mitigate or get rid of the virus. That's not true either. Um, Vitamin D is always good for us in terms of sunlight, but this virus, at this point, the best way to mitigate it is to practice the social distancing. As you can see, we keep saying the curve is flattening, and that's because we are not continuing to give it to one another to transmute the virus. It's slowing it way down. And so right now, until we create a vaccine, this is the best thing. And then the other thing I want to share with you is about some of the resources. So let me go to this slide first, and then I'll go back to that. I'll actually open up that document. Some of the resources with regard to college students is College and Career Compass is there to help you find an educational pathway, or OtterBot is a good resource to help students navigate financial aid. The Washington College Grant is also a great resource, and people can receive up to full tuition in many state colleges and universities. So if you want links to these different things, let us know. Actually, I'll forward them on to Florette by Monday, so that you can link to them. And so with that, I'm just about at the end of my presentation, but I want to go to this resource. The other resource that we have is a resource guide, and it is on our King County Public Health website. That website is also a really great place to take a look at for a lot of resources. We have those resources in various languages, and so we want to encourage you to go there. But we created this specifically for community. It is a resource guide, and I'm going to take us down. Sorry to make you dizzy, but I'm going to take you down. You can see that there's information in here about utilities if you have issues with utilities. There's also information about cash assistance. Here's information about food assistance. And then I'm going to take you down a little bit to the undocumented resources for undocumented immigrants. So you can see there's a number of resources in this guide. And this guide is in a PDF format. And so I'm going to send it to Florette actually right after I'm finished here, and she can forward it to you. Okay. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I just want to reiterate that we are really, really here for you. We have a number of task forces that have been set up to address different areas. So we have a higher education task force for our college students. So if there are specific questions that you have and you can't find the answer, you can email me, and my email is at the end of the PowerPoint as well. You can email our staff and we will try to get answers to you as soon as possible. Again, there's all kinds of resources, and we really don't want you to suffer in silence. If you feel that you're sick, and if you feel like you're not being heard or listened to or getting the testing, okay? Or your family's not getting the testing, we want you guys to know that we're here and we will help support you and get you what you need. So, I'll stop here. There's a lot I can share, but I just wanted to give that overview. And the most important thing that you could do is still practice the social distancing. I know it's been hard. I know we're on our way to soon opening up some things. I know that some of our, other communities are happy and are nervous and happy and anxious and upset. But listen, we do not want to go backwards. We don't want to lose more lives. I can't tell you some of the conversations I've had around people burying family members because of COVID. So please, let's do honor the social distancing. Okay. Thank you, beloved community, and I'm here. So
Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Florette. I work with Mother Africa, and we will get started with the panel. Our first panelist will be Nadia. So Nadia, when you're ready, you can get started. Thank you. Hello?
Could you guys hear me?
Yeah, yes.
I can hear you now, Nadia.
Okay, gotcha. This is my first time, bear with me. It's been a while since I've done a presentation, so I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen here. Let's see.
Let us know, Nadia, if you need help. We'll be glad to walk you through it.
Okay, could you see my screen?
No.
No, okay, let's see. Okay, sure.
There it is.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, see my little lion there?
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. Okay, hi guys. I am Nadia, and I'm going to do a little presentation. A little bit of it might seem a little redundant from what Deborah spoke about, so I'll just kind of quickly go through that so you don't hear it twice. But just going to talk a little bit about COVID-19. Let's see if I could hide there. Okay. So like she mentioned, you know, a lot of this is all new to a lot of us healthcare providers. We've never seen anything like this. Well, you know, early 1900s, we had the Spanish flu, but in recent times, this has been a pandemic that we are all dealing with. And, you know, currently there's about 80%, most of the deaths have been, you know, elderly people, people with underlying conditions. Heart conditions, lung disease, diabetes. This actually affects me too because I have an uncle now who's in his 70s in the hospital with COVID-19. So this is definitely hitting all of our communities. And I think that if we practice the social distancing and do what we, the CDC and the WHO, what they recommend, I think we can help prevent spread of this disease. As she mentioned, a lot of the symptoms, you know, could be fever, cough, shortness of breath, muscle aches. But there are a lot of people who don't even have symptoms at all. Some people who say some of their symptoms are similar to like allergies, and being that it's spring, sometimes people confuse it with, you know, hey, maybe it's just allergies, or, you know, could be that. So younger population sometimes don't have these extreme symptoms. I know at the hospital when I do work, we do check everybody's temperature. That's one thing that you might notice, you know, as phases start opening up, it might be common practice that wherever you go, they'll be checking your temperature. And even if your temperature is good, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are, you know, clear of the virus. So these are some of the rare case scenarios, things that could happen. You know, death, kidney failure, respiratory problems. You know, the lung is severely damaged with this coronavirus. There is some chance of it, you know, returning back to normal, but that does take a while. So with transmission, So this is why social distancing is so important. And I know a lot of you have been, probably going out grocery shopping or going certain places, and you notice that there's, stand here, stand here. And so definitely taking that seriously. As you can see, the particles can go, even 6 feet is kind of borderline safe. I mean, you need to take the best precautions that you can. So diagnoses right now, there are some viral tests, antibody tests that they could use to test you for COVID. And a viral test will pretty much tell you if you are currently infected. And right now there's some conflicting information that I'm hearing. Some I'm hearing that you may not, even if you've had it before, you could potentially have it again. So you're not clearly out of the woods. But I'm also hearing that the antibodies could protect you. So that I still, a lot of this is still new to all of us. So, okay, let's just kind of pass through this. So currently there are no drugs licensed for this treatment or prevention of COVID. So I know they are currently working on vaccines, certain medications that might be appropriate, but currently there's no proof that certain medications are used. And people with COVID are typically receiving supportive care to help relieve symptoms. Prevention, cleaning your hands, washing your hands, as you know, alcohol sanitizers, you can use that. Avoid people who are sick, stay at home as much as you can. Safe distancing, as we talked about, covering your face, and also disinfecting your surfaces. So these are stats pulled up yesterday, and the numbers I'm sure have changed. But this is kind of to give you an idea of how widespread this is. 3.2 million worldwide cases. In King County, we have about 447 deaths, and that number I'm sure changed since yesterday. And these are our Washington state numbers. And current situation, as Deborah mentioned, we do have the stay-at-home orders that were extended, and then he did implement 4 phases to reopening the state. And so I think that, I think he said till May 31st. School closures, as we know, graduations being canceled. There's just been a huge toll, unfortunately, but we are working on the phases, and I think that will help a lot, tremendously. So my background, I've worked at Overlake, and I've done med surg, I did oncology, I've done home health, I've done a lot of different types of nursing, behavioral health. But one of my main passions in healthcare is holistic medicine, and that's kind of the route that I'm headed towards. I really have a huge passion for this. And I think that if we combine this in our lifestyle, or if we, incorporate some of this into our lifestyle, we can definitely help prevent. So one of the main things is stress relief. A lot of the closures, a lot of what's going on right now is causing a lot of stress for people. And stress, as we know, is not our friend and can definitely impair our immune system. So managing our stress, getting fresh air, going outside for walks, obviously practicing your social distancing, doing some deep breaths, just kind of getting into nature. So that will really help. Sleep, definitely making sure you get your sleep. Melatonin and other growth factors are produced at night when you're sleeping. So those are definitely, that's something you really should focus on. Eating healthy, avoiding sugar, alcohol, processed foods as much as you can. They say you are what you eat. So eating regular, organic as much as possible, eating healthy, and clean water, staying hydrated. That's definitely important. Meditation and prayer, those help with the stress factors. And again, putting you in the parasympathetic mode, calming your nervous system, focus on what you can control. There's a lot of things going around. There's a lot of things you cannot control. So a lot of times people contract and they get really scared about what's going on, and that just kind of defeats the purpose. So trying to remember what you can focus, meditating, taking that time out as you need to. And also with the social distancing, it's causing a lot of people to feel isolated, and that's really not good for their mental health either. So staying engaged, doing the Zoom, I'll tell you, this is the first time I've been doing Zoom this week, and it's great being able to engage with people, you know, virtually. We have such wonderful resources now compared to early 1900s when, you know, they had that, you know, pandemic then, you know, you're stuck at home, there's barely anything you can do. And so at least now we have the option to Zoom and still be engaged, call people, call our family members. You know, there's learning opportunities that we can also take advantage of. Maybe there's a language that you wanted to learn, or you wanted to study real estate, or you wanted to study this. Taking that time to refocus the stress and focus on how you can come out of this pandemic feeling like, hey, at least I accomplished this, this is what I could control, and this is what I did. I think that's going to be major in helping us prevent. And also what you focus on expands. So if you focus on the positivity, the outlook, you know, we have a, you know, all this resources at our fingertips right here on this computer. I just find that amazing. So again, exercising, walking, yoga, you know, doing some cardio if you can, strength training at home, in the garage, outside. A group, you know, two of my friends and I, we did social distancing, but went to the park and we did kind of some cardio the other day, and it felt really great to be able to do that. So I highly recommend that. Mask, I did find some masks on Amazon that you could purchase. You can make your own mask, but definitely we want to reserve those medical masks for nurses. When I work on the floor, you know, we really try to save as much of our PPE as possible. You know, I think if you can make your homemade, my mom, she's making some great masks at home, just using her little sewing machine. So, you know,
this isn't the first time.
And then Deborah talked about a lot of resources. And so I would go into her PowerPoint and see about those resources that you could utilize. There's a lot of help out there right now. So if you know, need any assistance, I would resort to that. You know, I tried to find disinfectant supplies. It's been really difficult to find any. So trying to conserve and not, you know, I always tell people not to hoard all these supplies, because then you're taking away from neighbors and elderly or people that really need it. And then food bank, healthcare, you know, healthcare, I think, is home care. If you take care of yourself, social distance, stay at home, do what you can do to help all of us. You know, as a nurse, I really appreciate people following what is recommended, because we really don't want to stress our healthcare system right now. We want to reserve for those people who are ill, who have high risk. So,
She's doing it, and I have no.
Oh, could you guys hear me?
Hello, sorry. Yes, I think someone has their mic on. Is it Deborah? Yeah. Please turn off your microphone. Okay.
I was like, am I talking to myself? Because I don't know, I can't tell.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead, Nadia.
That's okay. So what can we do as a community? I know in the African community, we are very, you know, we love to be in groups, right? Right now, you know, we have like Ramadan for a lot of people who, you know, being together is a huge thing. And so this has definitely impacted us, I think, mentally, not being able to see family members, visit with relatives and friends and such. But I hope that if we follow these rules strictly, we can get out of this sooner than later. You know, if we don't follow this at 100%, we could extend this for months on end and just, you know, ruin all the efforts that we've made. And children, you know, like even now I don't let my children visit my mom or anybody, you know, that's older, because these kids sometimes don't have the symptoms and they could spread it to older relatives who have maybe other stuff like diabetes or high blood pressure or stuff like that. So I think educating the public, you know, stay tuned with what's going on to flatten the curve. And that's me. That's not appropriate because I'm not wearing my goggles and my gloves in this photo, but that's similar to give you an idea of what we were going through. So, and I think that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. Yeah, thank you. This is some great information. And please, guys, don't hesitate to text questions on the group chat, and we will the panelists will answer the questions after the panel. So thank you so much, Nadia. Our next panelist will be Kamal, and please go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Um, my name is Kamau, and I lead the Washington Census Alliance. So sorry to have joined you a bit mid-late in my apartment building here. Um, last year we got bought out, and they had this fancy company in New York, like a little private equity company, buy up the building, and they gave everybody Wi-Fi. You know, just free Wi-Fi under new management. And I don't think they ever predicted so many people would be using the Wi-Fi at the same time. So I had to work through some technical difficulties to get on, but I'm really glad to be here with all of you to talk about the census and the great work that organizations like Congolese Integration Network have been doing to make sure our communities in particular are counted. Because, many of us African immigrants aren't always um, aware, don't know how much to trust this government. Sometimes you don't know about the census. Maybe you only know about the census from back home, which is quite different. And so, but it's critically important because, as Nadia just talked about, resources are so important for our communities. Healthcare, roads, schools, those are the main reasons that either we immigrated or our parents immigrated to the country. And all those things are at stake when it comes to the census. The count is what distributes this funding and resources. So what I'll do right now is I'll start sharing my screen and talk to you a little bit about what the census is all about, what Congolese Integration Network and others have been doing to get out the word about the census. Really let you know why it's so important, and then give you some opportunities to get engaged if you want to. If you have, an auntie somewhere, and she doesn't check her mail too much, or you have that uncle that maybe isn't too organized. At the end of this presentation, maybe you can be able to call them up and say, "Hey, uncle, have you done the census?" It's really important. These are the ways that you can know that it's safe for you to engage. So, okay, I'll start sharing my screen here, and we'll get started. If there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll kind of address them as we go, and then we can have a little Q&A. All right, so I'll ask the classic Zoom question. Can everyone see my screen? All right, go get some head nods. Zoom is a great place to do jokes because everyone is on mute, and even if it's funny, you'll never know. All right, so the Washington Census Alliance is a coalition of organizations that came together a couple of years ago when everyone was hearing about the citizenship question. If you heard about the citizenship question, or you heard about that somewhere in the news, is that a story someone heard? You could use the little emoji for like thumbs up if you had, or maybe, yeah, okay, so a few people. So people came together because they were very worried that putting a citizenship question on the census for this year would discourage some of the people in our community to not fill out the census and be counted. And for people like me, myself, who's undocumented, my parents had overstayed their visas many, many years ago, and then now I have DACA that allows me to work. That's a big worry because some of our community wouldn't be counted. So they came together to create the Census Alliance, organizations like Congolese Integration Network and others, and created this strategy. And it was because there's $800 billion in federal spending that is distributed through the census. And it also impacts redistricting, which is how we can have representation in government. And we saw that there was this count suppression with the citizenship question, an undercounting of communities of color, and an underfunding of the census, so that it would be harder for people like us to be counted. And of course, for those people who are, upper middle class, wealthy, well established, you're living in Mercer Island, a couple blocks down from Bill Gates, those people have a very easy time of being counted. They have a very clear address. They're not living in an apartment building like me, right? And so our strategy was, what if organizations came together and led by communities of color, people who are impacted, and did all this organizing. So we had 600 trusted messengers. I know some of them are on this call. And then we do some advising with local governments and elected officials to make sure that we get an accurate count. And so this is kind of tends to be what it looks like. A lot of organizations together talking. You have these organizations and trusted messengers talking to households about the census, and by talking to them, letting them know, here's the correct information, here's what you share, and then when you're at mosque or church or wherever, you can be giving people correct information. And the reason we're doing this work is the census is all about distributing political power. And so if you can even remember to some classes, at the beginning, the reason that the United States began doing the census was to figure out, how do you distribute representatives to Congress between the states? And even at that time, it was so contested that, who got counted was so contested that is where you got the 3/5 clause, the only place in the Constitution that actually acknowledged enslavement, because the North and the South were in this struggle for, how many people should be counted. And of course, it was very racist the way they decided to do that by only counting Black people as 3/5. And so that's just to say that there's who gets counted, and that distribution of political power is very critical. And it's been a source of controversy for a very long time. And what we're seeing now with things like the citizenship question or misinformation are echoes of that past history. The other really important part is the census distributes federal and state funding, which is another way of saying it is the information that the governments have to direct investment, public investment of our tax dollars to different areas. If an area has, this type of population, the federal government knows, okay, we should invest more there for healthcare, education, highways, rural assistance. And this is so important that even things like COVID-19 vaccines, when they come up with a vaccine, those will be distributed to the states and to localities through the census count. And so the work we're doing this year is going to be very important. And of course, it also helps, governments know how to plan schools, roads, that sort of thing. And also informs decision-making of businesses, nonprofits, philanthropies. If your business is trying to grow, they use the census count for what's the population like here. All right, does that make sense? Are we together? Have I lost anyone? Perfect. I see some questions in the chat. All right, great. So those are still going. And so I wanted to also talk about that first part, mainly about representation for communities of color in Washington State. In Washington State, people of color, Africans, Latinos, Asians, Native Americans, we are 30%, about 30% of the state population. But when you look at the legislature in Olympia, that's the place that is supposed to represent us. And that is the place that distributes and directs public investment, billions of dollars of our taxpayer dollars. Only 16% of those decision makers are people of color. And so part of what we want to do is, focus on the census, right? And make sure that the population count is correct. But then make sure we're supporting organizations, Afropedia, Congolese Integration Network, Mother Africa, Living Well Kent, all these other organizations, to make sure that we get involved. We get involved in the process so that we are at the table making decisions, and we have representation there. And some of the lessons that we learned from 2010, which is the last census, it happens every 10 years, is a similar effort came together. One America, a few other organizations came together and said, we really need to make sure our communities are counted, immigrants are counted, people of color are counted. And there was a higher self-response rate than the national average. So the national average was 72%. In Seattle, you had 77, King County 80, Washington 80. And that's so important because there's, you can get counted in the census a couple of ways. One is responding to it yourself. Another is an enumerator or a census agent coming to your door asking you questions. And the reason it's important to self-respond is because when you are responding on your own, you're able to be comfortable sharing, who you are. Like, I'm Kamau, like sex, male, race, Black, African American, and then maybe in the box I even put Kikuyu, so that my ethnic community is counted. But of course, if I'm with, an agent comes to my door, and me knowing that, I don't have papers, and there's this agent coming, I might not answer it well. And then that might, not get the correct numbers. And so what we saw in 2010 is when you have more people responding to the census on their own, then we gained a new congressional seat. And that is where I think, many of us have lived at one point or another, which is that kind of Federal Way, Kent Auburn, seat that's majority minority. And, it was decided by a commission, and we don't need to get too much into that, but we got a new congressional seat and it was the first majority minority district. And then in the state, the 4 districts were also majority minority. The 15th in Yakima, the 11th that's in Tukwila. A lot of the community are moving to that area, Tukwila, SeaTac, that area. And the 37th, a little bit closer to where I live in the Central District in Seattle, and the 33rd, that's also in South King County. And that allowed us to get, representation. For example, some people may know Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She got elected after the census and redistricting in the 37th district, a majority minority district. So communities of color were able to lift her up. Now, she's went to Congress and she's pushing for great things like, Medicare for all and universal health care. She's one of the big proponents of making sure that everybody is paid during this crisis. So we can even see that the communities back in 2010, by working on the census and redistricting, were able to have such a big impact on politics and resources in our community. And the last thing that happened in 2010 is when everybody was able to self-respond at a high rate, we could use the Voting Rights Act to sue places that were denying representation. For example, in Yakima, Yakima's a majority minority city, but what they used to do is you used to have to get elected. Everyone in the city voted on all the city council members. And so what that meant was it was always difficult for a person of color to get elected. And after the census count, you could say there are this many people, they're not getting represented, and now they have districts, and others, places like Wenatchee, Walla Walla, and others moved to district elections without a lawsuit, just kind of seeing what happened. And there, great leaders like Dulce Gutierrez got elected, one of the first Latina city council members. You got the first Latina mayor. You got other representatives. So the census, even though it's might be boring or you don't know too much about it, it has such an impact about shaping our future. So let's talk about how you can help. You can go to WeCountWashington.org, and that website has a ton of resources, which will let you also download those resources with your organization's logo. So maybe Afropedia wants to share something on Facebook, they can download something about maybe knowing your rights. Maybe some people are concerned about, will the census ask me for my social? Will it this and that? So they can download a resource there. It has, pictures of people in our community, right? So we did not go to, we did not hire any models. We did not get any sort of generic pictures. We know there are plenty of great people in our community who could be on these resources. And so you have someone on your community talking about knowing your rights, talking about the census, and then you can put your logo on it. And it also has things like maps, and we can look at what areas are responding to the census at different times, right? The next resource is we've made and bought a texting tool for all our partner organizations. And so right now, you can, if you want more information about the census, if you want to say why you got counted, why you did the census and why it was important to you, if you want to encourage that auntie or uncle to learn a little bit more about the census, to pledge to be counted, you can tell them to text census or to text SIN if you're wanting census for Census Alliance, CIN for Congolese Integration Network. Everyone right now can try it by texting CIN to 332020. And when you do that, what happens is, and I just took a screenshot of my phone here when I did it, is you text SIN and you'll get this message that says, help your community get funding it deserves, join Congolese Integration Network and pledge to take the census. Maybe you've already done the census and so you say, yes, count me in. So you text back why. Or maybe you haven't done the census and you want to learn more, so text why. Or maybe, I don't know, you did not, you don't like Congolese Integration Network. Maybe there was a time that they upset you. There was a time that they shared a Facebook post and it did not catch your angles correctly, in which case you can always, after texting CIN and hearing this message, hearing Congolese Integration Network, remembering the trauma of seeing that picture get shared, you can say, no, I don't want any messages. So it's not gonna spam me with messages, is what I'm saying. And then you can share like, here's why I want to be counted, why it's important for me to be counted. Local funding, political representation. For me, a representation, obviously I just saw that slide and I was shocked, 30%, but only 16% of the legislature. I'm upset, I want representation, that's why I'm doing the census. And then, reply with my first name. Again, it's optional. Some people, maybe they don't want to give up their first name. Me, I'm Kamau, I'm very proud. So I got this pledge. I'm taking the census because of representation, come out. And now I can share that on Twitter. I can put that on my Facebook story. Not only will I get a lot of likes and that will boost my self-confidence, getting a lot of social media attention in this time of social distancing. The likes are very important. The hearts even more important than they've ever been. And it's very good for me to share that I pledge to be counted. And other people, of course, they'll want to copy. They'll say, Kamau shared this pledge to be counted. Everybody was there, 30 comments, 102 likes. I'm going to pledge to be counted and share it too. I want that clout. I'm trying to build up my social media presence in this time of social distancing so that when we come out into phase 2, it's been better than before. All right. So I'll pause there. Pause there and see if there are any questions, or if people, I don't know how much time we have, so please, Beverly, you tell me, Africans, we like to talk, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, so us African are a little behind schedule, but we'll make it work.
Yeah, I guess, are most people here kind of from the Seattle area?
We have people from Washington, Canada, France, a little everywhere.
Okay.
That's wonderful. This is Deborah. Before we continue forward, I'm probably going to have to sign off at about 2:15 for another call. I just wanted to indicate that and try to stay on a little bit just in case people have questions specifically for me.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yes. All right. So quickly before you're able to leave, what I want to do is share this page that we helped build. And on this page, I talked about resources, there's materials, there's others, but one of the cool things is you can see how your community is responding to the census live. And you can get demographic data. Maybe, you start wondering, why is my community not being counted? So we have a lot of data here. And what it shows is, Washington is responding at a larger than the national average, which is good, 61% versus 55%. And then you can highlight different census tracts. So maybe, I know there's some people in France, so I hope you don't feel left out. Similarly to our brothers and sisters in Canada. But we can take a look at some of the areas we know community is from. So here we can see, obviously, some trends. If you live on the water, which means you probably have a nice house, very clear address, 4 bedrooms, you've paid off your mortgage. When you get your mail is just pre-approved Capital One credit cards. It's all sorts of good news for you. And so you usually get counted. Now, if you live somewhere else, maybe you live near Des Moines, maybe you're new to the country, and you're just trying to get up on your feet, and you live in maybe like a trailer home or a mobile home, you don't have that much of a clear address. Maybe right now you are a CNA and you're just working, 12-hour, 16-hour days. You don't have time to check the mail. Maybe your cousin who's staying on the couch, there's a warrant out for them or something like that. You're very concerned about anything that comes from the government. And that's where you get areas like this, where you can see the census tract here, is like there's only a 35% response rate, whereas the US average is 55, state average is that. And then you go to this sort of area over the water, that census tract is 73%. And that's all to say, and I'll just stop sharing there, and this is sort of my final word, which is, get out there, make sure your community is counted, but remember that part of why our community tends to not be counted is actually systemic. It is our communities aren't part of unions most of the time. If they are, it's probably because they're working in healthcare, so they're not able to make as much money to be able to have a house with a clear address, comfort, and a responsive government. And so it's not going to be enough for us to just be counted this year. That's not going to magically fix government. That's not going to magically fix roads and transit and all of that. It's going to take a lot of the things that you all are doing probably every day to combat some of this systemic inequality, where you can have such clear places of who are the haves and have-nots, and such stark divisions in our state. So I'll stop sharing there. I'm very thankful for the time. Apologies for the early technical difficulties. I see some great people. I see Flora Burt here. Flora Burt sits on the coordinating committee of the Census Alliance. So sort of like the board of the Census Alliance. So that's always good to acknowledge your boss whenever you see them.
Great. Thank you so much. And so before that, Joanna, just 1 second. Deborah will be leaving soon. So we wanted to get started with the questions only for Deborah. And then after that, we'll move forward with your presentation. Is that okay?
Sure, no problem.
Great. Okay. So I think this is Munia's turn. Munia will be taking care of the questions. Munia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
Okay. So
Okay.
there's one question for Deborah. Is the Washington College grant available for international students too?
So I will double check. It feels like, I will double check. I don't want to misspeak. And I'm assuming that you're meaning international students that are attending college here in Washington State. So I will say that all of the resources that I mentioned and briefly showed you our resources for individuals currently residing in Washington State. But if you are an international student attending school here, I will get that answer for you. And then I thought I also noticed a question about COVID numbers and whether or not people of color, Black African descent are contracting the virus more than others. And what I can tell you as far as King County is concerned, and even in Washington, we have committees and interested parties who and community who have been asking those questions. We've received a couple of letters recently, and I know that folks are trying to gather that data and figure out why that's occurring, if it's occurring, and why that's occurring. I will reiterate what our panelists, our beautiful panelists said, Nadia, about you know, the hypertension, the diabetes, so the at-risk factors. And in the African American community, I know we have high risks of diabetes and other uh, conditions that make us at greater risk. So as soon as that data is available, we will make sure to make it available. But this is the other thing I would say. If you really have an interest as a community, you can write a letter to our government. You can actually send it, you can send it into our task force to Matias Valenzuela, and it will alert them that you have an interest in it. The more people that are interested in that information, the better.
Okay, I'm gonna give the floor to Florette so that she can introduce you or nothing.
Did we finish with all the questions?
I think some of the questions are directed to Nadia.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Deborah. Now we're gonna move forward with Joanna. So yeah, when you're ready. Thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon, all you beautiful people. I wish I could see all your faces. However, Florette, did you want to do it in a question and answer style, or I also have a presentation prepared?
Yeah, I think you can start with the presentation first and we'll do the questions.
Okay. Well, my presentation is supposed to answer a lot of the questions that Florette you gave me before, so I'll go ahead and get that started. I'll try to make this quick.
Okay,
so
thank you so much. Yeah.
So I have my presentation up. I'm hoping you can all see it. If you can see it, panelists, can you put a thumbs up? Can you guys see the presentation?
Yeah, I can see it. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great, thanks. So my name is Johanna Martinez. I am the managing attorney for the West African Community Council's Immigration Department. And a little bit of background about the West African Community Council. The West African Community Council's philosophy is to advocate, organize, assist, and educate and support the West African community and its members while preserving it, and I would say respecting tradition, culture, social, religious, and moral beliefs. We have three main services: immigration, which is the one that I'm in, labor rights education, and early learning and our early learning program, which also has the Parent Child Plus program, which involves home visitors, helping those who are pre-kindergarten to achieve success when they actually start entering the school system. Our early learning program is located in Seattle, and they have a bilingual French and English curriculum. Our immigration program is mostly located in the Kent office, And our immigration staff consists of 4 of us right now doing a multitude of different things. I have Isanjai, which is our executive director of the organization. He is also a BIA accredited representative. That means he can do and perform legal representation in front of United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. Stephen, Denton, and I are the 2 attorneys on staff. I do primarily assistance with USCIS petitions. We can both do immigration representation in front of USCIS or the immigration courts. Stephen does more of the immigration court type work. And then we have Faiza Duwale, who is our immigration legal coordinator. And so if you're calling us, you're most likely going to speak to Faiza first, and then eventually she will do the intakes and get an understanding of what kind of issue you're having so that we can schedule a time to meet. Most of our services are fee for service, but we do have some possibilities to do low bono and pro bono, which means low cost or no cost immigration services, depending on your circumstance. So there's been a lot of things going on with USCIS. If you guys have something pending, the USCIS offices are closed for in-person services, which means if you have an interview or a biometrics or something that required an in-person appointment with an officer that's most likely got canceled, you should have gotten a notice. If you did not get a notice, they'll probably send you notices after June 3 if you are expecting something. I would recommend, if you have something pending or active in USCIS, to go to the USCIS case status website and just check to make sure that they didn't send you a notice that you might have missed. So they are also still processing and receiving applications. So you can file what you need to file. You just probably wouldn't expect to be able to have to go in for a fingerprinting appointment or interview until after they reopen their in-person services. The Executive Office of Immigration Review is another immigration department, and that's mostly for people who have immigration court cases or are expecting to see an immigration judge. Those who are not detained are have immigration court or had something scheduled, they're most likely postponed up until May 4, and then May 15, I'm sorry, through May 15. And then if you know somebody that is detained, then that is over in Tacoma, then that is still continuing to go on, just a little bit more difficult. Courts are still open for filings. So if you have something to file, you can definitely still do that right now. Their USCIS is a great website to follow up to make sure if they're open, or if you just need to get updates on when their offices are closed, when they're open. And I put the link right on the PowerPoint slide right there if you want to copy that. And if for some reason you can't get it, please feel free to write your questions in the chat box. Stephen and Faiza are on this call and can respond to your questions if you have general questions while I am speaking. So temporary visas. If you are on a temporary visa here in the United States, you're probably wondering like what you have to do if it's about to expire and you can't travel. What does that mean? If you're on a visitor visa right now, there's a general consensus among the immigration community that COVID is a sufficient reason if you're unable to travel because of that, if your flight got canceled, if there's a feeling of uncertainty. However, it is a good idea that if your flight got canceled or you can't travel, you have a secondary evidence, like a letter from a doctor or your email saying that your flight was canceled or rescheduled, to keep that so that when you do submit a visa extension, you have that as a reason. it's a good practice to apply for your visa extension 45 days before the end of your authorized period of stay. So when you come in, when you had come in, the CBP officer would have let you know how long you're able to stay. You want to make sure you file that visa extension, which is the I-589, within 45 days before your authorized stay is due to expire. And that can be filed online. So we have the website right there if you need to extend your stay. Some people come in, depending on which country they're from, not on a visitor visa, but on what's called the visa waiver program. And normally there's no extension for the visa waiver program, but USCIS can grant a 30-day discretionary, what they call satisfactory departure, which says that you should have left and you did leave. But you'd have to contact the USCIS at their phone number listed right there to kind of let them know about the same situation and the reason why you're unable to leave. You may have alternative possibilities to stay, such as adjustment of status, and everybody's immigration situation is different, so it's really hard to say like, well, your friend was able to do that, your friend's situation might have been different. So if possible, talk to somebody who's qualified to practice immigration law or an accredited representative in order to discuss what those possibilities are if they exist for you. All right. So visa processing outside the United States. So you may be wondering if you have something pending for a family member, or you're waiting for a petition to go through and it's currently under what they call the National Visa Center, or about to be scheduled for an interview at the embassy. What's going on with that? All of the non-routine non-immigrant and immigrant visa appointments have been canceled as of March 20. So if you had something pending, most likely they're going to reschedule that once it's due to reopen. It's really hard to tell. I can't give an estimated date as to when they're going to reopen or when they're going to reschedule. It's leaving a lot of people kind of in limbo with uncertainty. But when they do reopen, we're hoping that the embassies should be contacting you to reschedule that appointment date that you had. A good way to find out is to check the individual country State Department websites. So for Kenya, you'd want to check the Nairobi US Embassy to double check. Most of them will have some kind of COVID related information up on top. There could be an exception for urgent travel request exemptions. That's going to be very limited and humanitarian in scope. Something really drastic should be happening, and there's going to be a lot of challenges with that, but that is a possibility. If you just want to go home because you miss home, that's mostly not going to be accepted. Also, a lot of you have probably heard about the presidential proclamation suspending entry. President Trump wrote something on Twitter about that a couple weeks ago, causing a lot of people to feel worried or panic. That was mostly a propaganda tool or more for politics. It does affect some people, but there's a lot of categories where it doesn't affect. So it affects non-citizens outside the US who do not have a valid immigrant visa as of April 23. So if they got their immigrant visa before April 23, then they should be okay. It suspends the issuance of visas for 60 days. In some ways, since most people aren't going to their interview appointments anyway because the embassies are closed, that doesn't really make a whole lot of a difference because they're not able to get those visas because they can't go to the interview. So nothing much has changed on that. And the what they call the immigration ban does not apply to spouses or unmarried children of US citizens. So if your immigrant petition is for your spouse or for your unmarried child, then that should still continue in its processing. And it also does not apply to non-immigrant visas, so like visitor visas. However, this may be affected by some kind of future proclamation, but right now the current one that was issued on April 23 does not include non-immigrant visas. So just so you know, the difference between an immigrant visa and a non-immigrant visa is an immigrant visa are those usually for like a family member and you're intending them to come here and get a green card, or an employee who's coming here to get and then eventually get a green card. A non-immigrant visa are usually those who will not allow somebody to get a green card, and those are usually tourist, student visas, and other types of special visas, but those are the most common ones. There's a website right there for State Department COVID updates. You can check that routinely. And just so you know, to find out if it is a legitimate website, a government website or not, it usually ends in a .gov. So when you're Googling or trying to look for information, make sure that the website you're going to is credible. Okay. Locally, naturalization assistance. So what about naturalization? If you were planning to become a citizen in the next year, so you can vote and partake, they are still processing applications, so you can still submit your application. I believe right now there were local free citizenship clinics that can help you apply. That's temporarily on hold, but I know the organizations like One America and the city's New Citizens campaign are brainstorming and finding ways to still be able to assist you with naturalization. If you guys have questions on that, you can feel free to visit the One America website or the New Citizens campaign of Seattle website, or you can reach out to us to try and find out more information on that. Our office is still accepting intakes, so we're still screening and seeing if there's ways for us to assist or refer people to assistance as they exist. Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project is a place to visit. I think they're also physically close to the public, but are still answering phones. And same thing with Entre Hermanos is another nonprofit organization that does removal defense, which means removal defense are those who are subject to deportation or have received a notice to appear in immigration court. Another organization is Asian Counseling and Referral Services, and I believe they are still doing intakes, screenings, and consultations over the phone. There are two other legal services providers that are doing over the phone consultations are Eastside Legal Assistance Project, and the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network. They don't do legal assistance, but they're a really good resource and advocate network for immigrants. And finally, so the WAC, we are here to try to help. So if you have any requests for assistance, we ask that you try and go and do an intake and complete one of our intake forms to see in what ways we can help you during this crisis, if we can. Or if it's an immigration related inquiry, you can schedule a consultation or an intake. We would get your information and schedule you for an appointment in the future to discuss with either me or Steven. And our phone number is right there, 206-636-9882, and you will be talking to the lovely Faiza. We do ask that, as we will try to help as many people as we can, but just to be patient with us as our resources are a bit strapped during this time. And so there might be a little bit of a wait. Okay, so that's pretty much it. If we are unable to answer a call, we have our email address right there, immigration@wacofseattle.com. Please, in your email, write down your contact information, what city you live in, because we do prioritize our cases and who we're able to assist based on those who live in South King County and King County. So that would be Auburn, Renton, Kent, and Des Moines. Afterwards, it would be the greater King County area. and sometimes you might be placed on a wait list depending on the current demand, but we will do what we can. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanna.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, so as part of the panel, we were supposed to have Jones Ajay, who is an international student expert, but unfortunately he is not able to join. So, but it seems like most of the information that Joanna shared with us is very applicable to international students. And then Deborah also shared a couple of resources for the scholarship. So we will make sure to add that on the website as well as on the information that we will be sharing after that webinar. So I guess next is going to be Munya, who is going to be taking care of all the questions from the attendees.
Yes, thank you, Bev. So the first question that we have, I think, is for Nadia. Someone is asking, where can we get mask and hand sanitizer?
So, hi. You know, it is so difficult right now to find some. I've been looking even some for my own household. You know, some people have gotten, I'm gonna see if I could pull up. There was this one agency that was giving out masks, kind of some that they made. I can find out that information and put it in the message.
Okay, I think the next question is still for you, Nadia. What type of mask do you recommend from Amazon, and what color so that people don't get scared?
What color?
Yes, for an African American woman.
Okay, so what type of mask to wear? You know, I think, you know, if there's anything you can find online, I mean, the color, I don't think the color should matter. Does she mean, what does she mean by that?
I'm just gonna say, based on being an African American woman, what color should she wear so that she won't scare people, I guess.
Oh, okay, gotcha. You know, I would say any color, pink, blue. Blue is pretty common, like a light blue. And right now everybody's wearing masks. You know, I went to the store yesterday and many people are wearing masks. They're requiring it on one airline, and some other places will start requiring that people wear masks. I saw the regular old-fashioned surgical mask, you know, on Amazon when I was on there, and those you could get. They're not, I mean, they initially they said you don't need to wear a mask, but I think they're going to kind of go towards requiring it. So if you can find some, I know inventory is really low with a lot of disinfectant. I try to order some, and it's just, you know, it's really difficult. So I've even tried some natural. If you go in the natural organic section, there's some that you could use. It's better than nothing. But as far as colors and masks, I think it doesn't really matter. At this point, we're all in this together. So being safe is number one priority. So yeah, so whatever you could get your hands on. And I know there's some agencies that I heard of that were giving out handmade masks that people were making. And I could find out if I can get that resource for you. But really, I think just any mask will do.
Okay. The next question is there any places where we can get tested to the COVID? If yes, where? If no, are they planning anything to make it happen?
You know, from what I heard, that they are going to bring in lots of supplies. They're trying to reserve that initially for the hospitals and people in the clinics, the general population eventually when we get there. So if you do have the symptoms, obviously the first thing you want to do is call your doctor's office. You don't want to self-diagnose or self-treat based off of what you find on Google. Number one, call your doctor's office. They usually have a triage nurse. She can triage you over the phone and let her know what your symptoms are. And then they will triage you at that point and let you know if you should go in. We want to avoid people, a mass, group of people coming in if it's not necessary. So I would say number one, call your doctor. And if they find that it is necessary that you take a test, then they can go from there.
Okay. The next question is, do we know how long approximately the lockdown will last?
So from what I saw yesterday, it looks like it's till March 31st is the first wave. And then there's going to be a phase 2, 3, and 4. And I wanted to include it in my presentation, but it kind of just came out yesterday. So right now, phase 2 will start probably in June. I think based off of the calculation, we're not looking until probably late July, August, before some normal is going to happen. But that's assuming that everybody follows the protocols, assuming that, you know, we do continue the social distancing, and that we can, you know, continue all those protocols, assuming everything is perfect. And even then we might have a new normal, where people are wearing masks everywhere, you know, hand sanitizers, restaurants being at 50% capacity or 75%. So we're going to probably have a new normal for a while. So even though because he's not going to turn on, it's not like a light switch where, you know, suddenly we can all gather again. You know, this is going to take a very long time, probably throughout to the end of the year. And so, yeah, so this can probably go on for a long time.
Okay. I think, Joanna, you already responded to this question in the chat, but there was someone who was asking if the information that you give is just for West African only.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't serve West African only. We have served people from the greater African continent as a whole, and non-Africans as well. So if you have a need, we only have very limited language capacity though. I speak English, Tagalog. I'm originally from the Philippines. Steven speaks some French. Faiza is from Kenya. And then our executive director, Isa, speaks French and Wolof, as he's from Senegal. And so just being able to coordinate that is sometimes a bit of a challenge. If a person has an interpreter, then we would be able to discuss with them. They can just bring them over or have them on with them for the call. So no, it's not limited to just West Africans. I did want to add something really quick that I wasn't able to discuss in the presentation. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So I want to share my screen again really quick about things that people can do on their own without having to contact us. So if they want to check their case status online, USCIS has a great tool for that, and they just have to enter their receipt number on that website, and it'll tell you. It's most of the time correct. Sometimes it's a system and it can get glitchy, but that's a good way to check where your case is. You can also do e-requests online straight to USCIS without using an attorney if you haven't received a notice in the mail, or if you believe your case is outside normal processing times. Normal processing times are years, so if you might want to just check with an attorney what's the normal processing time, but then if it goes over that, you can do that case inquiry on your own without having to pay any attorney fees. Also, if there are typographic errors on your green card or documents, you want to correct that so you don't want to have problems later on. You can change your address. It's very important to change your address with USCIS if you do move, because that burden is on you, the applicant, to inform them. You can't tell them that you moved and you didn't get the letter. They would say like, well, why didn't you tell us that you moved? So that's something that, please, if you do move, you want to make sure you get your notices by updating your address with them so they can't blame you for it later. If you have a request for evidence that they mailed you, or a notice of intent to deny between March 1 to May 1, because of COVID, you have an extra 60 days to respond, so you don't have to panic. And if you do decide to extend, here's like some sample language. You probably don't want to copy this exactly. You want to make it tailored to your situation. But if your visa is about to expire, you would explain that you intended to go home or leave on a specific date. but because of COVID-19, it was unsafe to travel, or my flight was canceled, or I was sick, or whatever your legitimate reason is, and you add the supporting letter or email, and you attach that proof. That's something that you would want to explain if you do request an extension. And another thing that I recently found out, I'm not too familiar with this since I don't specialize in student visas, but if there's a lot of students that are here, they might want to talk to their school or look into this. There seems to be a provision that allows for F1 students who experience severe economic hardship caused by unforeseen circumstances like COVID, and they experience, for example, loss of financial aid or loss of on-campus employment, or substantial fluctuations in currency value, all in relation to something that's unforeseen, then they may be able to get work authorization to work off campus. And so I thought that was something that might be very useful for people to look into. You'd have to talk to your school. Your Form I-20 must include the employment page completed by your designated school official, certifying your eligibility for off-campus employment due to the severe economic hardship that you're in. So just wanted to let people who know students or who are students know of that possibility. Okay, that's all.
Okay, the next question is for Kamal. How long is the census open?
That's a great question. So the census, the most important period is the self-response, right, that I talked about. That was extended, so you can self-respond up to October 30th. But of course, you don't want to, wait until that time, because the organizations like us and Congolese Integration Network are looking at those maps of self-response to see where we should deploy resources. So people can respond right now by going to my2020census.gov. People can also respond over the phone. So if you have someone who is, a computer or phone for them isn't the best way, they can actually dial in and answer through calling. And I believe the number for that, I'm pulling it up right now, is 844 330 2020, and I'll drop that in the chat here. And then obviously some people have already gotten forms, and so you can just mail that right back if you got a paper form. It came from U.S. Census Bureau or U.S. Department of Commerce, which is where it's in, and then the return address will have it on there. Will be like the U.S. Census Bureau National Processing Center, 100 Logistics Avenue, Jeffersonville, Indiana, and also drop that in the chat.
Thank you, Kamal. There's a question in the chat. Someone who applied for a green card on September 2019, how long it could extend with COVID? I think that's a question for Joanna.
Yeah, if they apply, that's generally, from what I understand from that question, it's hard to answer. It's probably going to be, it's still going to be processed. I'm not sure because they don't really have any specific timeframes and how long it's going to take. Normally, green card applications, from the time they receive it to the time of the interview, if it's a family-based green card, which means you're applying based on like a US citizen spouse, then that, if it's September, probably about another year or so. So later in 2020 or even early 2021, that's kind of how the processing times are going right now. If it gets extended by COVID, it could be a couple extra months.
Okay, thanks, Joanna. The last question that we have, can international students do the census?
Absolutely. Anyone, the census counts anyone and everyone who was in the US on April 1st, and you are counted where you live most of the year. So I just dropped the information for responding. And the reason for that, you can sort of just think through it in your mind, right, is the census does stuff like direct money for how often will the sidewalks be redone. And so whether you're an international student, whether you have papers or you don't have papers, doesn't matter because you're using the sidewalks. And like that's the easiest way to kind of to understand that. So anyone who's in the US on April 1st is counted, and should fill out the census regardless.
Great, so that was the last question. I'm gonna go ahead and give the floor to Stephen.
Hey everyone, Arbogast Tweezer, a member of Afropedia. Just as a reminder, if you are not speaking, please mute yourselves, and also this is being recorded for informational purposes. Thank you to all the panelists, and we very much appreciate it. I know we all have gained a lot from it. And here we have few organizations with us, and I would like for these organizations to introduce themselves, to briefly introduce themselves, tell us about where they're located and what resources they do have for our community during this time. This will be conducted in an alphabetical order. So without further ado, we will start with Africa Now. Please take it away.
So I believe we have Abari representing Africa Now.
Africa Now is not here.
Yeah,
Did you say my name?
Yeah, we can also see.
Oh, yeah, I'm for African Youth Coalition, not Africa Now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. It's okay.
All right, you can go ahead. African Youth Coalition. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abari Charles. I am one of the co-founders for the African Youth Coalition. We started around 3 years ago in order to create an alliance and a coalition with all African youth organizations throughout Washington State, but specifically King County. We wanted to just bring everyone in together because we know that there's power within unity. Sorry, my voice is like coughing up. And through that, we've been able to do community outreach. Like in February, we did AfroLink, which was a networking event, and we just support all African youth organizations with ASA nights, things like that. Right now, with COVID going on, we're still figuring out different ways that we can bring other organizations just to kind of talk about what their plans are moving forward and what we can do together to move forward. So this is definitely a place we wanted to be a part of. And thank you, Afropedia and Mother Africa, for having us and allowing us to be on this panel. We're excited to see what comes after this.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate it. Now we're gonna give the floor to Chanel ATV. Sorry for my pronunciation, Channel. All right.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, it's great to be here. I learned a lot from all the panelists who've spoken so far. My name is Davis Chirwa, and I'm representing Channel ATV. We are based here in the Seattle area, specifically in Kent, Washington, and SeaTac. So our mission is to use technology as a tool to empower, African communities or minority communities, if you will, to make sure that we tell our own stories. So we founded this organization with the sole purpose of making sure that we have a voice. And so we use technology to make sure that we tell our stories through videos and digital media and social media. So we are so honored to be a part of this conversation today. And most of the organizations that we've worked with, we continue learning and making sure that we advocate for things that are very important for the community, including equity and social justice. So we are also a part of the coalition for the Census Alliance here in the Washington area. So it's been great to work with other organizations from different languages and different parts of the world So it's been great. So we love to connect with everybody else on this call. If you have a need that you think you need to broadcast to the masses, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we can definitely connect with you. So again, thank you to Afropedia and Mother Africa for always putting the community first. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chanel TV. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now we're gonna leave the floor to CIN. CIN is here. All right. Okay. We'll get back to them as soon as they get back to us. We're gonna leave the floor to Mother Africa.
Hi, everybody. This is Florette again. I work with Mother Africa.
Hello, CN is there, sorry.
No problem, go ahead, CN.
Oh, yes, thank you so much. Actually, I was just trying to chat with Davis while I lost my screen a little bit. My name is Floribert Mubalama. I'm the founder and executive director of the Congolese Integration Network. We are located in SeaTac, Washington. And during this time of pandemic, the COVID-19, the Congolese Integration Network was lucky, first of all, to be part of the Census Alliance, and also to have also the channel ATV in our facility. So those two resources helped us to be well organized at the beginning. So with the Census Alliance, we had already recruited 15 trusted messengers who were already working as community liaisons. And with the channel ATV, we're already planning to broadcast some messages around the census. And when the pandemic started, also we included the awareness raising about the pandemic with the channel ATV. Thanks to Davis, who is here, and thanks to Kamau, who also is here. So secondly, we move forward to recruit some community credible messengers. So the credible messengers are people who connect the organization with the community in terms of information dissemination. And using that channel, we were able, of course, to mobilize the community around the COVID-19 and directly to move with food distribution for those most vulnerable community members who we knew, for example, that they will be affected in the long run with food shortage, and as well as maybe money to pay for their different basic needs. So we knew already that the pandemic will put so many people in the unemployment position. We launched the application support for all the communities, people who lost their jobs. So we offer an employment application support. We provide technology support as well to people who cannot apply online by themselves, so they can meet one-on-one with one of our trusted messenger or one of our community credible messengers, and they will help them to apply for unemployment, for utility discount resource, and for also the stimulus check that so many people were not able to claim. So we also provide other basic needs to our clients. Like right now, so many people are in need of maybe following up with the immigration status, or those community members who do not know where to file their different papers. They come to the office and we help with those. We connect with other many organizations who have partnered with us. Like we have here the West African Community Council is one of our partners, and we are happy that we are able during this pandemic to meet the needs of our community members. And so happy with all of you. The Afropedia, I know all of you guys, and we are doing some amazing job together. And of course, this is what we wanted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sia. And now we're gonna go back to Africa now. Whose representative is Kemi? Kemi, could you please take the floor?
Hello. So Africa Now is we are a nonprofit in the state of Washington, and we exist to educate, organize, and mobilize youth to kind of imagine a sustainable future for the global African community. And so for the past 2 years, we've kind of held our annual conference. This year, we've switched our annual conference to an online platform, given everything that's going on. And that will be held on May 30th and the 31st. So if you check out our website, africanowassociation.com, for more information on that. We're also putting together a Slack channel, which is a tool for young African leaders. And that will have different community organizations all in one. And so for any event planning or things coming up, you're able to kind of join on and see what's going on and what's happening in our communities.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Africa Now. Now we're gonna go back to Mother Africa.
Okay, finally. Yes. Hi guys, this is Florette. I'm coordinating a lot of things at the same time. I work with Mother Africa and I do, let's say, 3 programs. We have a lot of programs. So Mother Africa is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is we work with refugees and immigrants to reach their fullest potential. So I do Safari, which is a program that provides resources. So what I do, for example, Joanna, if I have like clients who come, they need assistance with immigration services, I check their information and then send them to Joanna. So I connect people to the resources. So if people come and they need any information from the organization, I can refer them to you or any type of assistance. I also do Best for Babies, which is a program for new arriving mom in the US, African moms. When they come in the US, the program help them navigate the system, advocate for them, and help them with different needs. And I also do Resilient Women. We work with 20 women, and we talk about different topics and also provide resources to them. So we have a lot of resources. I'll share our website so you guys can check it out. And yeah, we work with families. You should check our website. So yeah, Mother Africa. Yeah.
Thank you, Mother Africa, very much appreciated. Now we're gonna leave the floor to One America. One America. Alrighty. We're gonna move on.
Oh, she's there. She said, "Can you hear me?"
Yeah, wait, give her a minute. So this is Sarah. Okay, you should be able to talk now, Sarah. Okay.
Okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Sumati. I'm the Senior Program Manager of the Naturalization Program at One America. And if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen just for a brief moment. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so in my role at One America, I also serve as one of the co-chairs of the Protecting Immigrant Families Coalition of Washington. And so this is a coalition that formed about 2 years ago in response to the changes to public charge. And I think a lot of folks on the call are probably familiar, or at least have heard the phrase public charge before. But basically what it is it is a provision in immigration law that requires that when you seek a green only a green card or a visa to enter the US, you have to prove that you're able to be self-sufficient and not dependent on government assistance. It is really scary for a lot of communities, and there's lots of misinformation that has been circulated in the community, and a lot of fear and panic. And so the coalition meets every quarter, and then I also send out a monthly newsletter. And our goal with the coalition is we have over 150 members. A lot of them are service providers, health clinics, nutrition programs, early education organizations, coming together to try to figure out how we can get accurate information out to communities so that people, especially right now, don't drop their benefits for no reason. Now is such a critical time for people to have access to all of the economic assistance, all of the food assistance, and other benefits that they may be eligible for. So we try to advocate on behalf of better policies here in the state of Washington and just share information with one another. I will send this to Florette, or actually, Florette, I already sent it to you, but if you'd like to subscribe to the PIF Washington newsletter, there's a link there. And again, I send these out once a month, and I include tons of resources every time about how to figure out whether public charge might apply to your situation. I include as many translations as there are for all of the resources. They're linked here, but if you sign up for the newsletter, there's many, many more. One of the biggest pieces of misinformation that we see is we see a lot of folks who are not subject to public charge withdrawing from benefits anyway. And so one of the things that I always include in any presentation I give is this graphic at the bottom, which is that it's only a small number of people are actually receiving any benefits that may get them in trouble with immigration. Folks who are subject to public charge are almost always people who are applying for their green card as a result of a family petition. So if my brother, my spouse, my parent does a sponsorship for me to get my green card, then I might be subject to public charge. But there's no public charge associated with naturalization. Folks who have any type of humanitarian status, for example, refugee, asylee, Violence Against Women Act, the U visa for victims of crime, getting a green card through any one of those statuses, you are not subject to public charge. Chances are, if you're receiving any type of benefits that you're eligible for, those are totally public charge safe. And so the number one piece of advice that we always give is to get the facts about your own situation before letting fear and panic take over, especially right now. The last thing, of course, we want to see is people withdrawing from assistance or not applying for assistance that they're eligible for out of fear. There's a brand new disaster cash assistance program that is here in the state of Washington that's completely public charge safe. So we want to encourage people, if they're eligible, to seek that out. Anyway, I will close with that. Please join the PIF Washington Coalition. You can subscribe to the newsletter. You can also send me anything you want to share with the wider coalition. If there's any programs or announcements that your organization wants to share, I'm happy to include those. We share upcoming trainings, resources and their translations, helpful videos around public charge, and things like that. All right. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you a lot for all these informations, very helpful. And now we're going to give the floor to Rewa, R-E-W-A. All right, it looks like we're having some logistics issues. So we're gonna go ahead and give the floor to the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Manis. I'm the Advocacy and Civic Engagement Coordinator at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, which is a support services agency located in the Central District, and we serve folks in the King County area. I'm here today to let you know about some different resources that we offer during COVID-19 and where to stay updated on the resources that we provided, because resources are changing and developing as this is further, and different resources are needed, such as masks, hand sanitizer, some of the things that were discussed earlier on this call. So the first resource that we offer that I wanted you all to be aware is that we do provide grocery assistance. So if you know any elders or families that need assistance with groceries in the King County area, I would highly suggest going on our website. The capacity is growing, so I would definitely try to do it as quickly as possible, because it is first come, first serve. We are also assisting in a youth shelter. So if you know anybody who is 18 to 24 that needs assistance during this time with providing, immediate shelter or housing, I would highly also suggest to go on our website or give us a call at 206-461-3792, and someone will help assist you with getting coordinated and getting intake for that. We are also working on having our workforce readiness programs become very virtual. So definitely I would follow our social media and whatnot, because we're looking into doing our virtual job fair. We also have job developers that connect folks with employment. So we're looking on doing that virtual, as well as our workforce readiness programs in the tech industry and the construction industry. So the best way to stay updated is to follow our social media, which all of the handles are at C Urban League, or check out our website, which is urbanleague.org. I'll put that in the chat box and make sure that people know about that. But that's basically it for the Urban League.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. And now we're gonna get back to Rewa. You can take the floor.
Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm not sure how to turn on this camera thing, so that's okay. So I'm Carlin, and I'm with the Refugee Women's Alliance, REWA. And REWA is located in Puget Sound in Seattle, Washington. And we have been in operation for a little bit over 35 years. We serve specifically refugee and immigrant communities, and we provide cultural and linguistic services. We have about 150 staff, and our staff can speak about 52 plus languages and dialects, and we serve about 12,000 families and children yearly. For our services, we offer domestic violence program. I run the domestic violence program, and we also have family empowerment, which provides services to vocational training program, employment services, youth program. We also have behavioral health services and early childhood education program. So that's pretty much our services, and then I put in our website there, and you can check it out our website. So if there's any questions, just feel free to contact me or email me. I will also put in my contact information in there.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Just as a reminder, if you have a question that needs answers to right now, you can put it down in the Q&A section, and all the organization will answer them respectively. So now we're gonna move on to Washington Coalition of African Leaders.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Eddie Nyasulu. I am with Washington State Coalition of African Community Leaders, mouthful, huh? We just call it the Coalition of African Community Leaders, or WSCACL. Washington State was founded about 4 years ago by organizations right here in Washington State, including Mother Africa. It's a nonprofit. It doesn't provide any services, but it has over 26 community organizations that are based in Washington State. People can also join as individual. As a matter of fact, our outgoing president, Kwajo from Ghana, he was not a member of any organization, but he served for 2 years as the president. The mission of the coalition is to support African community organizations in Washington State by providing a platform where African community organizations can share resources and information to enable collaboration and be the voice for African communities in Washington State. We believe in being one voice for all the organizations. So the motto of the coalition is to put the coalition first. The coalitions comes first, and then you have these individual organizations plus the individuals who belongs to organizations or they don't belong to any organization. As of this year, we changed the structure a little bit. Instead of having president, vice president, we changed to having all the board directors being co-chair, and I happen to be one of those co-chairs. So at the moment, we have 5 co-chairs coming from different countries: Ethiopia, Somalia. I'm from Malawi, USA. By the way, this is not only for Africans; it's also for African Americans as well. So we have a co-chair from USA. We have a program manager from Nigeria as well. Now the coalition has committees. We have 5 different committees, including the census and the voter committee. That's we just created that for the upcoming elections. But we also have culture and heritage, health, youth, and education as well. For 2020, we wanted to simplify things a little bit because things get so chaotic when you have an organization of this magnitude. So we want to focus on 2 things: civic engagement and economic empowerment. Some of these organizations I spoke today, they do provide those kind of services. So it would be great to collaborate with them. But those 2 areas, we want to be working on those 2 areas. You guys are the first one to hear this because we're going to roll this out May 30th, and we'll put out information to invite people to that meeting. How you can get in touch with us? We have all the platforms that's available out there. We have WhatsApp, we have a WhatsApp group. We also are on Facebook, Washington Coalition of African Community Leaders. If you put that in Facebook, you'll find us. Our Instagram account is also active, WSCACL. That's it for the Instagram. You can also send an email to communityleaders@gmail. That will get to us as well. The biggest asset we have for communication is the website. Website is WSACL. That website is a platform for all these organizations, including some of the members who are in this panel as well. So we'll feature you there. If you go there, you find your organization, you can click on your organization and it will take you straight to your website as well. We have quarterly meetings that happens 4 times a year. We just had one last weekend. Some of you, I see the faces that attended that meeting. It was on Zoom as well. We have a next meeting coming up. It's going to be July 25th, 2020. So put that on your calendar. We'll be sending out invitations as well. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Afropedia and Mother Africa, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank all the organization and panelists again for being here, for taking the time out of their time to be here to share resources with our community. And without further ado, I'm going to leave the floor to Ben Ali, the Vice President of Afropedia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Ali, and I'm the Vice President of Afropedia. I'm just going to do the closing very quick. this event. We thank you so much. And this was the main purpose was to bring all the African organizations here because we believe that together we can serve our communities in even a broader way. So today we are very excited to have partnered with Mother Africa, which is our first collaboration, by the way, since we've been existing. And again, we are called Afropedia, and we just want to be the book of the resources for our African communities. So I'm going to thank all our panelists, all the organizations that took part today to this webinar. We thank Joanna Martinez, Deborah Baker, Nadia Ali, healthcare representative. We want to thank the Washington State Coalition of African Leaders. We want to thank the CIN, One America, Channel ATV, African Now, African Youth Coalition. And then for more information, this webinar is going to be posted on the website, Mother Africa and MyAfropedia.com. Also, if you need to get in touch with us, please email us at MyAfropedia gmail.com. That's where you're going to find us. It is with this spirit of togetherness that we will be able to serve our community in a broader way. Again, thank you so much from Afropedia and Mother Africa. And I'll give.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the attendees who spent 2 hours of this Saturday with us. We definitely did not plan on having the webinar go for so long, but hey, that was really, really useful information. So thank you again. And make sure to follow us on social media. If you have questions, you can email us on myafropedia@gmail.com or on the website, myafropedia.com, or you can find us on social media at myafropedia again. So have a good Saturday. Be in touch. Stay safe. Wash your hands.
Thank you.
And use some hand sanitizer.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Bye, guys. Thank you.